Continued from the Katheon and the Brothers playlist. Katheon had been in constant motion since his returning from his travels abroad, from meeting with the various leaders of Farmhold's many growing guilds and communities, to checking with channelers for updated progress reports. There was seldom a second that Katheon wasn't either in a meeting or heading to one. The months spent abroad had seen a vast amount of work done in Katheon's absence, much of it only possible because of the work he and his brothers had been conducting. While Nomad's Forge was capable of delivering vast supplies and delivering large amounts of both raw materials and finished goods, they also had others that were in need of the product of their incredible industrial output, not the least of which was themselves, as Han confided in Katheon that one of the mutinied ships of the Cosmos fleet was en route to Nomad's Forge to attempt to relieve Han of possession of the mighty estate of production. Katheon had not even gotten a chance to offer assistance before Han had told him that their alliance was best served by Farmhold being as prepared and able to defend itself from the oncoming attack of Deeplock, even if it was still weeks, if not months, away. Han was sure that the forces that were gathering at Nomad's Forge from various states and parties, along with the defenses that were being erected, would be more than enough to see the threat off with acceptable losses. However, he also said that he might be tied down for months before the attackers would be forced to withdraw, and as such, supplies and resource deliveries would suffer reductions as the situation required and developed. Katheon, of course, understood this, and made a comment on the timing of things. It was quite fortunate for Deeplock that Han would be tied down while the attack on Farmhold was likely to occur, with having to defend himself from an attack. Han's ages of experience and knowledge would have been invaluable and likely pivotal to ensure a victory as cleanly as possible. Han's response was still resounding in Katheon's thoughts. "Kath, listen up. You are a 5th-year graduate of Tranus, and I've spoken with Kana about your abilities and extracurricular training." Han's face was a mix of supporting and mischievous. "You are more than capable for this. You've crafted the best conditions for yourself and your aims. Now all you need to do is finish your preparations and execute your plans with purpose and focused intent." Later, as Katheon had just left a meeting with some tavern keepers, learning how the morale of the citizens and workers were faring in the last few months, he was recalled to the central house. A priority communication from Dragwa Home City, where Jastique and Lassen were attempting to gather support themselves, was waiting for his eyes, and his eyes only. Katheon's expression at being informed that it appeared that the transport the brothers had been on was attacked by unknown forces and lost while in transit over the ocean was a thing of silent fury, quelled only by him looking at the mantle in the house to confirm that their life flame candles were still burning brightly. Katheon knew that the brothers were alive, but not where or how they were. If Katheon was merely in motion before, he was now a blur of hectic activity as he began preparing to leave on a search mission. So much so that for the newest arrivals to Farmhold, those that he had gained the services of in his travels abroad, Sonliak the Dresai and Elisee the Elven Noblesse, it was impossible for them to get a moment of his time. That was, until Katheon, while passing through the house to grab whatever was around to eat between preparations, was lifted bodily off the ground in his armor by Sonliak with a single, large hand. "Hey! What are you doing? I have got to—" "To stop and listen to your advisors. Or you can continue prepping for a mission that is bound to fail, due to the objective already being completed. Sonliak spoke kindly, but firmly. What are you talking about? Katheon asked as he struggled, confused in the Daysi's powerful grasp. Elves spoke next. My lord, my cousins have rescued your brothers, as well as the other survivors of the attack. They contacted me to arrange for their safe return some hours ago, but I haven't been able to inform you until now. Elves bowed low and held it as Sonliak set down the now thoroughly embarrassed and properly chided Katheon as she continued. They estimate being able to convey your brothers here by the end of the week, along with an envoy to properly establish diplomatic ties with Farmhold. Your cousins? And stop with the bowing, would you? Elves replied as she rose, smiling. The Sea Elves, my lord. By the 9 and 4, welcome back to the library. In this entry, we're going to take a look at one of the most often overlooked and forgotten groups within the Elven nation. One that, while mostly autonomous and separate from the greater collective represented in Avlin, nonetheless fully considers itself members of Daystar's court proudly. In this entry, we're going to be looking at the Sea Elves of Jam'mar. Perceptive patrons, regular visitors, and new guests of the library, I am the recorder, and before we continue with the topic of today's entry, allow me to ask you to like, share, and ensure that you are subscribed to Gryphon's Library so you can always have ready access to entries as they release. If you wish to further support the Realms and the library, join us at Gryphon'sLibrary.locals.com for early access to entries days before their regular release, as well as content that you will find nowhere else, such as the full episodes of future podcasts of the Realms. Full podcast episodes will be available to all free and paying supporters at Gryphon'sLibrary.locals.com, while previews and other in-the-works material will be exclusively available to supporters. Other means of support are detailed in the channel's description page. Thank you for your consideration and support of the Realms, no matter what form it might take. Now, on to the rest of our entry. To begin with, it should be noted that the Sea Elves are not some mutation or adaptation of ancient Elven bloodlines. Indeed, they are one of the original Elven lines, founded and birthed by Daystar and as such, have been part of Elven culture and history from their earliest days. In those early days, they spread from what would become Avlin via the large river that has its headwaters in the Avlin region, to first the seabed around the continent of Britannia. It was here, in their first proto-cities under the waves, that they were given both the song choral by the IttR, so that they could grow and shape their buildings and cities much like their woodland cousins, as well as receiving the tide drakes from the dragons, so that they could travel with speed and safety, as even in those early days, Jam'mar's seas were filled with all sorts of aggressive and powerful creatures. Bolstered by these gifts, the Sea Elves spread widely across the oceans of Jam'mar. Sea Elves are able to breathe air or water with equal ease, and are not affected by the pressures of the deep sea by the very nature of their bloodline, being descended as they are from nature's spirits of water. However, no matter how far they spread, they have always had a representative in the Elven court, and have never sought to become a separate power. Trading pearls, rare corals, and other bounties of the seas for various goods and materials for their growing population saw them held in high esteem among their fellow elves. Then the Wars of Feather and Scale occurred, both of which affected the Sea Elves very little directly. However, the events to follow, the reign of the Daemon Vanson, would see them cut off from the surface for many, many years. For some reason, perhaps because they were out of regular sight, perhaps because of a distaste for waging war beneath the waves. Whatever the cause, Vanson never made any attempts to go after the Sea Elves in their homes. However, that did not stop the hordes of pelagic and chaos-aligned beasts of the sea from trying to do so, and while they were in no way a match for the devastation wrought on the surface, the Sea Elves saw much of their holdings besieged and many of their cities sundered. Consolidating over centuries of conflict during the reign, by the time of its end, brought to a close by the three great heroes, the Sea Elves had founded a new capital stronghold in an even now concealed location, and only maintained a single large city settlement on each continent. From these settlements, they have expanded in the ages after the reign, and while there are far more locations where the Sea Elves now have holdings in the current day than even in their pre-reign heights, they are not of the same open grandeur of their pre-reign designs. It should also be noted that should it be considered necessary, there is more than enough room in the regional strongholds to accommodate the populace of all the smaller settlements in their regions. This is a clear mark of how, even though they were not directly attacked during the reign, it left its mark upon them all the same, just as all of Jam'mar's people. In the current day, the Sea Elves still trade in pearls, rare seafood, as well as two other groups of items. One that is not too surprising, the many treasures that have been lost beneath the waves over the years. And one that might come to a shock to many. Star metal. Indeed, this rarest of material serves as one of the biggest profit sources for the Elves of the Waves, as untold numbers of sky cities were destroyed over the seas of Jam'mar during the Wars of Feather and Scale, leaving the wreckage to be rediscovered and salvaged by the Sea Elves, or whoever may find it. While the discovery of such a ruin is almost always coupled with a significant, sometimes military effort to clear it out, the bounty of raw materials and crisp tech make it more than worth it. And in general, this is how we find the Sea Elves today, recovering sunken treasures and other bounties of the sea, while doing what they can to mitigate the worst of the ocean's dangerous wildlife and other beasts. They are happy to stay out of the sight of the greater realms, content to swim and discover what gifts the sea will provide, while allowing for solid and robust trade with their cousins as well as the wider realms. I hope you now have a better understanding of the Sea Elves, and how, while oft overlooked, they are as much a part of the realms, and in particular, the elven nation of Avlin, as any elf on Jam'mar. Perceptive patrons, regular visitors, and new guests of the library, I do hope you've enjoyed this brief look into the Sea Elves of the realms. Please be sure to leave any questions or comments in the comments below, and until you next find your way back to the library for your next entry of Intro to the Realms, I, as always, have been the Recorder. And by the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourselves and each other. If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching,